Claude Giroux gives himself a birthday gift. Flyers win 5-4 in the shootout. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick Lynn, and welcome back to the Orange and Black Attack as the Philadelphia Flyers come away this evening with a 5-4 victory in the shootout over the Vancouver Canucks. And happy birthday to Claude Giroux. He gives himself a the game winner in the shootout as an early birthday gift on a night that we celebrate the playoff heroes. As you notice, I'm wearing my playoffs 2012 hat, and I am wearing my Danny Briere jersey. Mr. Playoff was in attendance tonight, and he will be in attendance on Saturday as the Flyers alumni take on the Pittsburgh Penguins alumni in that alumni game. Big news out of that. Tim Kerr's actually going to play in that game. Haven't seen Tim Kerr play some hockey in a long time. Let's get into this game. Vancouver would strike first in the first period as Daniel Sedin gets on the board for the Vancouver Canucks as he's able to get the puck past Steve Mason in this game. We're going to get to that in a little bit, what happened later on. Not too much longer after that, TK, Travis Konecny, is able to tie the game up at 1, and the Flyers tie the game 1-1 going into the second period. The second period all year long has been the Flyers' period, but in the second period, Vancouver would strike first as Granlund would get the puck past Steve Mason. Sorry, I'm distracted. I don't have the list. I have to look on my phone. I've scored. There was a couple of times that my internet froze because I was watching the game on the internet, and I missed who scored the goals. But Granlund is able to score for Vancouver. He got the puck past Steve Mason, and they take a 2-1 lead. But the Flyers would storm right back as Pierre-Edouard Bellemare would get a puck right in the slot, and he's able to blast it past Ryan Miller, and the Flyers tie the game at 2. 18 seconds later, Sean Couturier gets on the board as Sig Voracek's able to slide the puck over to him, and he is able to find the puck and get it past. He's able to slam dunk it past Ryan Miller, and the game is tied. The Flyers take a 3-2 lead, but not so fast. Vancouver comes right back down the ice, and Granlund gets his second goal of the game to tie the game at 3-3. And long after that, Sutter for the Vancouver Canucks puts the biscuit in the basket to get the puck past Steve Mason, and the Vancouver Canucks lead 4-3 going into the third period. Steve Haxtell would make a change in goal as he would pull Steve Mason after the second period, and Michael Neuwirth comes into the game, and boy did Michael Neuwirth play wonderful for the Flyers to keep them in this game. The referees in this game were absolutely horrible. They had their head up their ass all night long. Vancouver had 8 power plays to the Flyers, I believe, 4. There were some really bad calls that were called on the Flyers, and nothing really called on the Canucks. You know, sometimes when that happens, the things will start to even out a little bit, but they didn't in this game. Referees were absolutely fantastic. At one point, they did call the penalty at this point, but this would lead into the Flyers tying goal. But the Flyer was getting held, and the referee that was sitting right in the corner didn't even make the call. And the referee at center ice made the call, and I love Bill Clement's his analogy of this. The guy from Delaware made the call, and the guy who was 8 inches away from it didn't make it. I mean, they're human, ladies and gentlemen, but they were absolutely awful in this game. The Flyers would connect on that power play as Braden Shen continues to play well this year. Granting that hit last year was not a fluke for him, as he gets the puck in front, and as he's diving, he throws the puck past Ryan Miller. Game is tied 4-4. That would hold going into the overtime. Both teams had their chances. Ryan Miller played well. Michael Neuwirth played well. The game would end up going into the shootout, and Claude Giroux is the only guy who scores a goal for the Flyers for anybody in the shootout, as he gives himself an early birthday gift as Claude Giroux scores the game-winning goal in the shootout. Happy birthday, Claude Giroux. The Flyers win 5-4. They are now 9-1-1 on home ice in the last 11 games. Your 3 stars of the game: Claude Giroux, first star for the game winner in the shootout. Second star, Michael Neuwirth, for coming in and doing an absolutely fantastic job in replace of Steve Mason, and Granlund for his 2 goals for the Vancouver Canucks. Day off tomorrow. Right back at it Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock as the Philadelphia Flyers head to Boston to take on Zdeno Chara and the Boston Bruins. That game will be on Comcast Sportsnet, and it will be on NESN for those who live in the Boston area. 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 10 o'clock for those who live on the West Coast, as the Philadelphia Flyers travel up to Massachusetts to take on the Boston Bruins, and then they're right back at it Sunday as they head down I-95 to Washington to take on the Washington Capitals before they go into their bye week where they'll have 5 days off. Key that they got the victory tonight. They need to come out and get points in the next 2 games because teams are nipping at their heels. And with this 5 games off, they're going to be stationary, and the teams that are nipping at their heels will not be stationary. So the Flyers need to get points coming out of these 2 games this weekend. This weekend's also the Flyers and Penguins alumni game from Wells Fargo Center. The game will be on TV. Coverage starts at 6:30. Bill Clement will be doing the broadcast. He will be doing it by himself. And Lou Nolan will be doing interviews with guys on the bench. Come out and see the Legion of Doom, the LCB line. Tim Kerr, Brian Propp, and Dave Poulin will be back together as a line. I'm not sure who's playing for the Penguins. I know Lemieux's not playing, but it should be fun. The game will be on TV. It'll be on the Comcast network. I believe it'll be at 7 o'clock was when the game starts. If it's like the alumni game with the Flyers and Rangers back during the Winter Classic, it'll be basically a running clock. So it shouldn't be a long game. It ought to be a lot of fun to see your old heroes. I'm especially to see the Legion of Doom because that's really the time frame that I grew up watching. I mean, Dave Poulin's my all-time favorite Flyer. I always loved his way of his captaincy, his leadership skills. He's my favorite Flyer of the 80s. Lindros is my favorite Flyer of the 90s. And Danny Briere is my favorite Flyer from like the 2000s in that era, along with Simon Gagne. My favorite Flyer from the 70s is, of course, Bobby Clark. But the Flyers, once again, come away with a 5-4 victory this evening in the shootout. Right back at it. Not right back at it, but day off tomorrow. Back at it Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. 10 o'clock for those who live on the West Coast, as your Philadelphia Flyers head to Boston to take on the Boston Bruins. And as I always end my episodes, good night and good hockey.